Time to talk South American football now, as always, with our man in Rio, Tim Vickery. Good afternoon, Tim.
Afternoon, gentlemen. Yeah, I'm wearing a top from a brand called Mr. Bridger in tribute to Noel Coward's character in the Italian Job, obviously. I did enjoy all that stuff about cheating. It brought back happy memories of Terry Thomas and School for Scoundrels.
Yes.
Absolute shower. Absolute shower.
Beautiful old reference. So
we did wonder if Carlo Ancelotti, had he done time, which seems very unlikely for this tax business, whether he would have been like Mr. Bridger. I would imagine it would have been very similar, wouldn't it? The Brazilian Job, or whatever it was.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know who the Brazilian Michael Caine would be, who would break into my toilet. I don't know who would do that. But it seems for these offences, first offence in Spain, you can just pay a fine and everyone moves on.
I just want to ask him a question. Are Flamengo claiming they're world champions because they beat Chelsea? I bet they are.
That was the story of the final. It was are Flamengo the moral champions, or are Botafogo the moral champions? Because one beat Chelsea and the other beat Paris Saint-Germain.
So funny.
Yes, there's a lot of that going on. A lot of it.
But they were dancing in the streets of Quito apparently because of Chelsea's win.
Yeah, well, I actually think Ecuador won this competition through the presence of Moses Caicedo and the absence of the PSG centre-back, William Pacho, who was suspended. He's a left-sided centre-back. And Chelsea and Enzo Maresca set up the thing really intelligent, I think, because he managed to transform PSG's strength into a weakness. Those attacking fullbacks who just crash through your pressing lines, but they can't be in two places at the same time. So Chelsea, with Caicedo winning the ball, winning the midfield battles early, and then just planting into that space behind the attacking left-back, where usually you'd expect the left-sided centre-back, the big Ecuadorian William Pacho, to just come and clean up. But the reserve centre-back, the Brazilian Beraldo, nothing like as authoritative. And that's, I think, where Chelsea won the game. So who would have thunk it? And 40 years ago, Ecuador were a kind of Luxembourg of South American football. And here they are producing the kind of players who can be decisive at this level.
It's true.
Yeah. We wanted to talk about a couple of the transfer stories. There's been a story about Richarlison potentially heading home to Brazil. Have you heard much about this, Tim?
Well, just a few whispers, because the teams that have come back from the Club World Cup, they got a lot of money. There's a lot of money burning, and so suddenly a move like this is a possibility. Now, you scan round Europe and you think, well, they got all this money, but who can they persuade to come back? And it's very unlikely they can do that with someone in their prime doing well in Europe. But that's not really the case with Richarlison, is it? He's been one injury after another. I think actually ever since Everton, and this was a sign that Everton were going to let him go, they let him play in 21. They let him play the Copa America and the Olympics. So he didn't have any rest at all. It's an illustration to me of the danger that we're flirting with the players by making them play too many times. And since then, Paul, as you know, at Tottenham, it's been one injury after another injury and one injury after another injury. Yeah. So he might be up for it. So that's a possibility. But apart from that, you look around and you think they got all this money. Who can they persuade to turn their backs on Europe and come back? You can always get veterans like Jorginho, for example, who's just slotted right in. You can bring him back, but those in their prime, if they're doing well, tough. Richarlison, maybe they've just got a shot. Yeah,
so even suggesting 55 million, which is kind of roughly what they paid for him. Palmeiras might pay. That does seem a bit steep, doesn't it? Even though there is more money in Brazil.
Well, yeah, and on Palmeiras, they broke the Brazilian transfer record for a centre-forward already. They bought Victor Hawksbee from Barcelona. He was on loan at Betis. He really hadn't come off. He's still a kid. But I think he is indicative of the trend, the worrying trend for me, of just going straight for Real Madrid or Barcelona. The João Pedro story, that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
Watford, Brighton, Chelsea.
Yeah.
Because some of them are good enough just to go straight in, some of them. But most of them, I think, and that's the way the people used to do it. But then Real Madrid thought, well, why do we pay the middleman when we can buy 10 of these kids, and if 2 come off, it's great for us. Not so great for the other 8, who've lost momentum in their career. So, and Victor Hawksbee suffered, I think, from going straight to Barcelona and just being overwhelmed by the whole experience. And I don't think he's recovered yet. So, they've already broke the Brazilian transfer record, bringing one centre forward back, and now it's possible that they'll do it with another one.
Yeah.
I say Endrick is a great example of that, isn't he? I mean,
yes.
he was so touted, he scored against England and he looked brilliant.
Yeah.
But he hardly played, didn't he, last season?
No, and his figures, his numbers were quite good when he did play. But he went to a club that didn't need him. I mean, Real Madrid, it's questionable, really, if they really needed Mbappe last season. I don't think Ancelotti really wanted him. He worked out a way to play without the centre forward, with Vinny attacking the space, and it worked very well. And then they brought in Mbappe, and Endrick, just don't need him. And so I'm sure he's learned something from it, but really he's probably wasted a year, hasn't he?
Yeah. When Ancelotti comes to pick his World Cup squad for Brazil, Tim, how many players do you expect to be playing in the Brazilian league? I mean, it's always been dominated by Europe, but the fact there's more money, the fact that players are coming back, the fact the quality's been up, do you expect to see players picked from the Brazilian league?
I think there'll be some, and I think part of that will be politics. He's very, very political. You don't survive at the clubs that he's survived in without being political. And a mate of mine knows him, wrote a book with him, and asked him, what do you do? And Ancelotti's answer was, I make the president happy. So, that's what he does. And there's no doubt about it. It goes down very well here if you pick some. And so there's for political reasons, if nothing else, he will be open to having some. Like when he did this with Odegaard at Real Madrid, the order came from on high, from Perez. We want this kid to play when he was like 16, 17. And Ancelotti thought, well, he's not really good enough for the big games, but, we'll give him a game here and there. So he's a very political figure. So I'm sure that there will be some. And straight away on his first week over here, he was going to 3 or 4 games. And that goes down well. And now he's got his son coaching Botafogo.
Yeah.
His son is with the help of Andy Morgan, a former Stockport County coach. Stockport County, Rio. That's a bit of a change, isn't it? So, his son, who says that his all of the time that he spent as Carlo's assistant, his main task was to disagree with his dad. That's what they did mainly. Now his son will be pumping him with information about players in the Brazilian league because he's working in it.
Yeah. I don't think we talked about this last week. Forest had gone back to Botafogo for Jair Cunha, 20-year-old defender. 6'6", one of the lads who works here, Ollie, was in Brazil last year and went to a game and saw Botafogo play and was impressed with this lad, said he was a beast.
Well, if it was last year, he wouldn't have seen him.
Because maybe it was earlier this year. He
was with Santos last year when they were in the second division. Got promoted. They got promoted, but Botafogo came for him. I'm not entirely convinced. He had a great game when they beat Paris Saint-Germain. Terrific game. But Botafogo were defending very, very deep, very deep. In the previous game against Seattle Sounders, they tried to defend higher up the field and he couldn't do it. So I worry about him in open space. I know Forest are a side that do defend deep, so he might not be too exposed. But also, I think despite his size, I think he can be bullied. I don't know if you saw their game against Atletico Madrid, where Madrid had a goal ruled out for a little push that the centre forward did on him. And I think most times the centre forward would probably have got away with it. But if you're 6'6", you shouldn't be letting the opposing centre forward bully you. So I think he might struggle a little bit. I'm not as sold on him as I am on the centre forward that they brought in, Igor Jesus, who I think is fantastic.
What about Wolves and John Arias? What do you make of him?
I love Arias.
Yeah, he looked great in the Club World Cup.
I remember saying on Brazilian TV a couple of years ago that if I had the money, I'd buy him just to stand him on the mantelpiece. Fluminense picked him up for nothing in Colombia. He wasn't particularly rated, and he's probably been the best player in Brazilian football. And it really surprised me when he didn't go after. I don't know if you remember the game against Man City, the end of 2023, the Intercontinental, when City just walked through and beat them 4-0. But Arias, he looked. He carried the fight. He looked totally at home in that company. With Fluminense, he gets very much a free role. He'll play not so much on the right wing as from the right wing. He can wander across, combines really well. What he does, he's a squat little figure. He turns so well and surges. Got a mean free kick in him as well. Very, very good taker of set pieces. For Colombia, he plays a totally different role. Because Colombia are carrying James Rodriguez, you got to sacrifice a little bit. So for Colombia, he plays usually as one of a very, very disciplined central midfield trio. So he'll do whatever you want. And the only thing that has stopped him coming, I think, so far is age, because the European clubs now, they want to rip him from the cradle. You know, they want 18-year-olds, and Arias is now 27. But it surprised me that he didn't go a couple of years ago. And now, obviously, he's used the Club World Cup as his shop window. But I think there's a little jewel there. I think he's a wonderful player.
Well, Wolves fans will be delighted to hear that, won't they? Excellent.
Yeah.
Tim, we'll catch up with you next week. Thanks very much.
You'll catch up with me next week in the studio. So roll out any red carpets that you got.
Yeah,
I want to see them.
We'll do that. Thank you, Tim. We look forward to it.
Paul Hawksbee and Andy Jacobs, Monday to Friday afternoons 1 till 4 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.